Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer. Call the...
Take him back! Take him out!
You die in prison as well.
You give a new meaning to the word evil. I've never, ever seen anybody like you.
First up, we're in Des Moines, Iowa, where 39-year-old Randall Moore is awaiting sentencing after being convicted of multiple violent crimes. 1 year earlier, he kidnapped his estranged wife, Therese Ann Lynch, inciting a hostage standoff with police from her apartment.
He has 20 shells. He wants no one to come to the door.
Moore fired 2 shots from a shotgun, one at a police officer, striking him in the hand.
Okay, 303 Adams been hit, officer down.
And another, killing Therese Ann Lynch. He claimed he murdered Lynch because she wouldn't allow him to see his infant son, who was at daycare at the time of the shootings. Moore was charged and convicted of first-degree kidnapping, sexual abuse, and the murder of Therese Ann Lynch, as well as attempted murder of a police officer. But now at sentencing, Moore must come face-to-face with his own mother-in-law.
You did to my daughter, Therese Ann Marie Lynch, was evil, hateful, and despicable. You are now dead and rotting and repulsive to me.
But before she can finish, Moore interrupts and takes a direct shot at the grieving mother.
Read the journal she wrote. She hated you. She hated you. You're a loser.
Then he drops a bombshell.
I'll tell you point blank, I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Therese Ann's death. It could have all been prevented. All you had to do is let me see my kid. Now you're never going to see her again.
Now, before handing down the sentence, it's veteran judge Joel Novak who has the last word.
If anybody didn't know what a piece of work you were before you start talking, they know it now. I've never, ever seen anybody like you. I hope, really, I never ever see anybody like you again. The court doesn't allow me to punish you any more than I'm doing now. If I could, I would.
Randall Moore was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the crimes against Therese Ann Lynch and an additional 25 years for the attempted murder of a police officer. He's currently...
You see anywhere on there where Officer Burke says that he took 200 Oxycontin? No, sir.
We're in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at a hearing for police officer Marco Burke. A few weeks earlier, Burke was investigating an abandoned vehicle left on the Middle Tennessee State University campus. This appears to be a routine inspection. Burke, with his body cam on, takes a few moments to survey the vehicle. He then looks around inside the car. He confiscates a bottle of pills containing 100 Oxycontin laying on the front floorboard. He also finds $1,100 in cash and another 100 Oxycontin pills. Then it's time to report his findings to dispatch.
Just the vehicle is unoccupied. That's it.
Burke reports that all he found was an unoccupied vehicle. No mention of the pills or the money.
Just the vehicle is unoccupied. That's it.
But what Officer Burke doesn't know is that he's being watched very closely, because he's actually the centerpiece of a sting operation set up by his superiors. Police Chief Buddy Peaster set up a so-called integrity test because he believed Burke was responsible for a missing AR-15 taken from a police locker. He denied stealing the weapon and was never charged. But thanks to his own body cam, he's now caught on tape committing a felony. Burke never reported finding the money or the pills. The day after the video was recorded, the items were found stashed in a lunchbox in a bush near Burke's parked car. Burke was taken into custody, where he made an emotional call to his wife to explain the incident. Now in court, Burke, who is joined by his wife, faces multiple felony charges, including theft and anywhere between 3 and 15 years in prison.
We were watching it from a live feed video that we had.
Do you see anywhere on there where Officer Burke says that he took 200 Oxycontin?
No, sir.
Do you see anywhere on that report where he took $1,100?
No, sir.
Officer Burke pleads guilty to tampering with evidence, theft of property, 2 counts of filing a false report, and official misconduct. And for a decision that only took seconds to make, Burke also receives a sentence of 7 years in prison. But as a result of a plea deal agreed to by the DA's office and Burke's attorney, the sentence was eventually suspended, and he ends up only serving probation. Next, we're in Las Vegas, Nevada, for a bond revocation hearing for a defendant accused of violating his parole. A year earlier, 35-year-old Michael McDonald was released on bond while he awaited trial for charges including burglary, forgery, and perjury. The criminal charges stem from a long and contentious divorce and custody case that ended with his ex-wife being granted a no-contact order to keep McDonald away from her and their 2 children. Now, as he awaits trial on criminal charges, the state argues he violated his parole when he violated that no-contact order.
One of his release conditions was to have no contact with the individual, his ex-wife. Approximately a month ago in June, he then mailed a number of items to his wife's address.
The items mentioned were actually gifts addressed to his children. McDonald's lawyer claims his client didn't know sending the items violated the no-contact order and argues he should be allowed to remain out on bond until his upcoming trial.
He sent 2 gifts, that's it. No nasty notes with them. Mr. McDonald is not violent or a threat to the community. He has had no allegations of violence.
The defense is presenting McDonald's actions as an innocent mistake. But Judge Kathy Hardcastle knows the history of the case and isn't buying it.
I would note that back in the family court, he constantly violated orders. He would always insist that the order said something else.
The judge also cites McDonald's history of unstable behavior during his divorce that ultimately led to the no-contact order being granted.
I was the one who found that he was a potential danger to his children because he lied to the court about surrendering his weapons after he'd been ordered to surrender his weapons, and that because of his bizarre behavior, putting a tracking device on his wife's vehicle. And so I'm seeing the same type of conduct, and it's an obsession. It's a escalating course. I'm not sure that he is capable of controlling himself because he wasn't before. So based upon that, I am granting the motion.
Moments after the judge makes her decision that McDonald did indeed violate the conditions of his parole,
Put your hands behind your back.
it's unclear what McDonald is trying to say to the judge as he pulls his arms away. What is clear is that McDonald is not ready to cooperate.
Mike, calm down. Mike, calm down. Relax. Breath. Mike, breath.
I got this thing about my kids. Come on.
Mike, calm down. Take a deep breath.
Guys,
15 charges. 15 charges.
yes.
As you can hear, McDonald's attorney calmly tries to get him to settle down.
Mike, stop fighting with them. They're nothing but stops on you. Don't fight with them.
But as he continues to resist, even with the threat of being tased, his lawyers had enough.
Mike, put the handcuffs on. I'll put them on myself. I'm on your side, Mike. Travel on.
As additional officers come to restrain McDonald, he continues to plead his case.
I just want to
prosecuted as an enemy of the state. I just want
Michael McDonald was found guilty of multiple counts of burglary, forgery, and perjury in relation to his divorce case and was sentenced to 24 to 68 months in Nevada State Prison with credit for 215 days served. And for refusing to be handcuffed during the hearing, McDonald picked up an additional charge of resisting an officer. We're in the Kenosha County Courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. A deputy is taking a handcuffed Elizabeth Cooper into custody following her pretrial hearing. Cooper was arrested for the death of 31-year-old Christopher Stachura. Stachura was found dead from a heroin overdose in his mother's garage, and the family fingered Cooper for providing the lethal dose. She was charged with first-degree reckless homicide, possession of narcotic drugs, and possession of drug paraphernalia. But she's now being taken into custody for violating the conditions of her bond due to an alleged theft and possession of drug paraphernalia. Just a few feet away are members of the victim's family. As the deputy waits for the elevator, Cooper decides to take the stairs. It appears a woman nearby takes a picture of Cooper and the deputy as they wait for the elevator. Then, as he responds to a radio call, Cooper slowly slides her left hand out of the cuff just outside of the deputy's line of sight. Now it's time for Cooper to make her move. She takes off down the stairs, but doesn't get far. The deputy chases her, followed by someone believed to be a victim's family member. Cooper darts down the stairs, but trips over the last step. Just as another guard joins the chase and jumps on top of her. As authorities wrestle her under control, the victim's family member jumps in the mix too, holding her legs. Despite the chaotic scene taking place, this woman just walks right by without missing a step. A few moments later, Elizabeth Cooper is handcuffed again. One of the bystanders helps Cooper put her shoe back on, while this woman with the victim's family snaps another photo. For her failed attempted freedom, Elizabeth Cooper received several additional charges, but eventually pled guilty to second-degree reckless homicide, bail jumping, and escaping causing injuries. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison at the Tachita Correctional Institution in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Next, we're in York, South Carolina, for the sentencing hearing of LaMarcus Williamson. Face-to-face with the judge, the 30-year-old seems uneasy as he waits to learn his punishment. Williamson pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and robbery for violently attacking and choking a female college student 6 months earlier. He now faces up to 15 years in prison. Representing Williamson in the courtroom today is York County Public Defender Dan Hall. He's filling in as a favor for a colleague who's handled the case up to this point. It also just happens to be the attorney's 58th birthday. As the judge prepares to hand down a sentence, two bailiffs reposition themselves, perhaps taking notice of Williamson's body language. Then comes the moment of truth. The judge hits Williamson with the maximum sentence: 15 years in prison. After the judge makes his ruling, Public Defender Dan Hall places his hand on Williamson's back, perhaps as a comforting gesture. Remember, Hall is just filling in at this hearing, and on his birthday, no less. So, how how's that saying go? No good deed goes unpunished? Even while handcuffed, Williamson delivers a hard-hitting shot, and both men tumble to the ground before officers jump in. Back on his feet, Hall wipes the blood from his mouth, but is not seriously injured. For the unsolicited sucker punch, Williamson is charged with criminal contempt of court and gets an additional 6 months tacked onto his 15-year sentence.
I'm devastated. I've lost my career, and I'm a felon.
Next, we go to Livingston County, Michigan, for the sentencing of Judge Teresa Brennan. The 63-year-old jurist pled guilty to perjury after a series of poor choices that effectively ended her distinguished career.
I have believed I am unworthy of respect. I have believed I have lived a wasted life, that my entire life has been a failure.
Brennan's fall from grace began when she lied under oath during her own divorce case. She also allegedly tampered with evidence pertaining to the case by deleting information from a cell phone. But there were more career troubles when she was charged with misconduct in office for her inappropriate behavior during a double murder case. The defendant in the case, Jerome Kowalski, was charged with killing his brother and sister-in-law, and the case landed in Judge Brennan's court. Later, it was revealed that Brennan was having a romantic relationship with the lead investigator in the case, and when a judicial commission asked Brennan to recuse herself, she refused. Kowalski was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Brennan was accused of judicial misconduct, but also charged with perjury and tampering with evidence, felonies, which could have landed her 15 years in prison. In June of 2019, she was also officially removed from the bench. To avoid trial, Brennan made a deal with the state and pled guilty to perjury while the other charges were dropped. She now stands before Judge Paul Cusick, taking full responsibility for her actions and hoping she receives the minimum sentence of probation.
I've been publicly shamed, I'm humiliated, and I am embarrassed, deserving of love. Do you not understand? I am broken.
Brennan's mea culpa continues as she describes how the results of her actions almost destroyed her.
My suffering reached a point to where I wondered how to die. A gun, pills, hanging, drowning, driving into a tree, asphyxiation, but I'm not that weak. I have sobbed more in the past 3 years than my entire life. And I am consumed with guilt. I don't feel sorry for myself. I blame only myself. I know I have much to be grateful for. I ask for mercy.
When Brennan was finished, the judge had a few words of his own.
And let me first indicate the first responsibility of any judge is to uphold the law. Even though you made others and required others to tell the truth, when it came your time to tell the truth, you decided that you weren't going to do it. And that behavior is unacceptable. And a jail sentence in this case for those reasons would be more than appropriate as far as this court's concerned. And it will be the sentence of this court. The sentence of Brennan will be to 6 months in the county jail, followed by 18 months probation.
In addition to jail time and probation, Brennan's law license was suspended. And because of her conduct in the Kowalski case, that conviction was vacated. Kowalski remains in a county jail and awaits a new trial. That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.